Let's begin. So we connect to our Ujjayi breath. Feel for how we might relax around the heads of the shoulders. So the shoulder joint, a ball socket. Like relaxing the ball. From the socket. When joints have that just right amount of relief and space, you can start to sense to me, it's like a fluid pulse. It's like there's a breathing, living pulse in the joints. And you can sense that in the elbow joints, perhaps. The wrist. And the finger joints. Isn't that such a remarkably simple way of changing the quality of mind? How is it? Just moving from shoulder to fingertip. So we'll be working rounds of Uddiyana, and I'll talk us through so we can keep our cross-legged position just as it is. Inhale, expanding the ribs. So it's just a right amount of work that those rib muscles do to accommodate the diaphragm, the lungs, volumizing. And then pause. And straight away, we'll bring the hands forward. Exhale everything out. Remain empty. And we'll draw the belly back, particularly from the perineum, to feel perhaps a little movement around the genitals, the pelvic floor. As you're drawing in toward the pelvis, and up, away from the pelvic floor toward the head. Can you feel that movement? And even back toward the spine. Can you feel that movement? And just simply releasing the belly when you need to breathe. So we'll do 2 more rounds, and we're all familiar with this. If you want to switch your legs for the next 2 rounds, you're certainly welcome to do that. I think I'm going to. So let's do these next couple of rounds on our own. So when you're ready, we'll continue. And give yourself plenty of recovery moments between each round. These breath holds can be quite deep endeavors, so all right. And so if you're getting complete with that, we'll straighten our right leg out and we'll tuck our left foot near our groin, setting the knees widely. So allowing for the trunk and the spine to lengthen. So I'm letting the pelvis kind of pivot around the thigh bones. We'll set the right arm down, reach the left arm overhead for side bend. Now you can bias this side bend a number of ways. So if I'm slightly folded, I'll feel the side, but also the back of my body. As I pry the chest open, I'll get into a different part of my left side. I'm choosing just a slightly folded side bend. But I recommend keeping that right leg active no matter which angle of side bias you're selecting. And then the bias is great, but introduce breath to the biased sensation. If it's pressure, if it's stretch, introduce breath into that moment. And now we will make a move toward fold. So we'll bring the left hand down and the right hand down. So now folding, kind of arcing our sternum out over the shin. Now that puts a little too much stretch on your low back and sacral area. What you have to do is adjust the left knee. Just bring that left knee a little bit closer to your right knee, kind of squaring off the pelvis. If there's no issues, you'll just get a really quite deep side bend. Whether you're feeling it in the side or the back. Again, introduce breath, so it's side, back, plus breath. It's feeling plus breath. And release. We'll inhale, come back up. And we'll switch sides. So do just these two moves on the other side. So we got left leg extended, right heel tucked, knees wide. And I'm suggesting is find that way of shifting the trunk lower to the ground so that the pelvis kind of moves around the thigh bones, which maximally lengthens my spine instead of just rounding my spine. And then we can set the left hand down and draw the right arm out overhead. Something I observe kind of frequently is when we do these kinds of where the moves where the torso is hinging nearer to the leg, instead of our movement being free around the hip socket, a lot of us will just bend at the spine, and then the spine and the ribs and all of those much, much smaller vertebral ligaments and discs get a lot of stress or load. There you go. Yeah, exactly. When I kind of move the pelvis, lengthening the trunk, exactly. So my ribs aren't compressed, my ribs aren't smushed. I can still get into the side. Good, and if we move toward the forward fold, we'll bring the right hand down. And I'm just orienting my sternum over my shin. But you may have to adjust that right knee, and if that's a little too much of a side bend. I just want to make the point abundantly clear that it's not feel, think, it's breathe plus feel. So let any sensation be a pointing in instruction for how do I experience breath there? The experience of breath in the body will lead us to a lot of open doors. And we'll release. When we unwind from here, let's lie on our back. We'll be working with the roll, so something to squeeze between the legs. And got you one there. Yeah. So let's bring the legs up with the prop, the roll or the blanket between the legs. I just happen to be using a block for the moment. Inhale into low belly. You feel both halves of your back on the ground. It's okay if you don't, but just what are you able to sense? Now squeeze the object. Exhale, float the head and the shoulder blades off the ground. And while you're squeezing up the object, the inner thighs light up. Can you grow the inner thighs lengthier as they're active? And then we'll draw the low belly down. Inhaling, we'll set the head down. Hold for just a moment, squeeze to engage the inner legs from groin to inner knee. Exhale, float the head and the shoulder blades off the ground. And then find that squeeze again. Sometimes one thigh, one hip area will kind of, and then reach, lengthening through the inner legs. Pull low belly down. Inhaling, we'll set the head down. And keep allowing that breath to remain in and with the body. Squeeze the object, curl tailbone. Exhale, float the head and the shoulder blades up. Get a good squeeze going so that you can track the squeeze, so you can feel inside the muscles, inside the joints. Draw the low belly down. Inhaling, set the head down. And let's keep going. We'll do about 5 more of these. So please continue at your pace, but your pace is also developing a bit of internal heat. Now, how do I do that for myself with a move like this? So I want to emphasize, it's not about completing this like it's a task, but rather we're treating this movement almost like a crucible into which, instead of, placing our firewood, we're placing our attention. As we keep moving and placing our attention in our body, in this case, our low belly, our legs, our pelvis, we're feeding the fire. Now, fire is a little bit of a poetic term, but it's also, you'll see it all over in the yoga texts. But it is kind of an accurate descriptor. You may feel something building up or percolating. Some people will experience this as a little bit of it's almost like you're setting the teapot on the stove to get hotter, to boil. So do keep feeding the attention, the breath, into that space of the low belly. Every healing tradition I've encountered in martial tradition speaks to the import of having access to this lower belly area. I can't say I disagree at all. There you go. Yeah, exactly. And it's perfectly all right that we have that breath in between the rounds. But do you know do you stay in the low belly even if you're taking a little bit of a rest round? Sometimes the way that we attend, the way that we notice and pay attention and feel and are mindful in our body, right? The way that we do that can matter. When we're through, I want to show you Havarasana lying on the ground. I also realize that this may not be the place that we need to go immediately. So let me show and then offer another possibility. So Havarasana lying is where the top of one of my foot is by my hip. Lying would be, if I dare, to go either to my forearms or to a blanket or to my back. Now, if you go straight away to the back, it might just be much too intense, and that's fine. You can draw this leg up. So if you discover that's much too intense, what you'll do is take it from bridge. So you'll do bridge, block, Havarasana. Okay. We'll start with the right foot tucked under first. So I'll just give you a second to decide if you're going into bridge with a block, or you might know that you're taking your Havarasana lying or almost lying. Go. There you go. All right. So as we're getting, yeah, good. Just keep settling in. As we're getting into our right foot in Havarasana, connect to breath. There we go. So provide a nice reminder way of how do I breathe in the pelvis. All right, the next part of it is drawing the left thigh toward the chest. So if you're on bridge, if you're in bridge, you'll be resting primarily on the block. Just know that. Okay. If you're lying on the ground, okay, we can draw that thigh in. We can hold it with the hands. And if you would like, we could also straighten the leg. I'm kind of drawing the legs apart. So I'm actively reaching the left thigh toward my nose, the right thigh away from my nose. All right, we'll release to switch sides. So we'll set the left foot down and moving that right foot out of Havarasana. Might have to move that slowly, give it some time. That can let the blood recirculate into the right foot. Second side, so we're drawing the left foot back into Havarasana. Again, it's from bridge or from lying. Now, if you're choosing lying on the ground, I recommend aiming or leaving the left shin on the ground. And then option 2 is drawing the right thigh toward the chest. And option 3 would be straightening the right leg and drawing it back. And find out if you can move the legs in opposing directions. So just left thigh, I'm reaching away from chin. Right thigh, I'm moving at my chin. And release. We'll set that right leg down, release the left foot from its Varasana position. And if you're in bridge, just take some moments to take the block out from under and begin descent. Alrighty, let's turn over and we'll set up for Dolphin. Good old Dolphin. So we'll go elbows under shoulders, knees under hips, plant forearms. Inhale. Letting the muscles, the rib muscles, support the lungs, the organs. Exhale, pressing the knees off the ground. Maybe a lot of tissues in the sole of the foot, all around the knee. That's kind of gradually reorganizing. I'd like to suggest a foot position. And I'll do my best to talk us in. If your heels are down on the ground, I'm going to recommend be on the ball mounts of the feet. let the knees be softly bent. And let the knees kind of wag a little bit out to the sides. So I'm kind of more prominently on the big toe ball mounts. And this way you can use that big toe pad to create that pressure into the ground. Now, why would I want that pressure? Well, that big toe, there's a beautiful ligament that goes deep through the arch of the foot and deep into the calf. And unless we use the big toe on the surface to push, that can get really, I don't know if it's atrophied or tight, or it just falls into a kind of disuse that can feel really like, ooh. So I'm actually using the big toe on the ground in a propelling-like motion. It's static, I'm not moving, but I can feel exactly the propulsion. And again, I'm letting my knees be softly bent and slightly, like my knees are a little wagged out to the sides. I'll say it a different way. My heels are a little closer to each other than my big toes. And that position might be a little bit nicer on some hips. Sometimes just trying to straighten the legs can be a little bit much on some low backs. But as you're using the big toe pads into the ground, you can start to straighten the knees. And again, why I'm trying to use the toe pad is because there's some activation and some continuity between the big toe, the sole of the foot, so the arch of the foot, and up the deep calf area. Those innermost foot bones, those muscles, those tissues can sometimes get a little bit choked of movement. So it's just nice to be able to know how to use our toes and our arch to bring liveliness back into the feet, the ankles, the calves, the knees. There you go. And then we'll gently set the knees down. So I want to just recap some stuff. So Joy, we got this, we had these little foot things we were doing on Sunday. We're just going to recap it because it's good. So there's a little bit of an exercise, just a perceptual, but also a muscle exercise, where I leave the forefoot on the ground and I kind of shrink my heel toward my forefoot, and then I grow my forefoot away from my heel. I kind of shrink or draw my heel toward my forefoot, and then I grow the forefoot away from the heel. So I'm creating an almost caterpillar or an inchworm movement with the sole of my foot. I'm just going to do that a little bit. Usually the first time people approach this, they may scratch their heads and go, wait, how does that move? How do you make that heel kind of pull toward the forefoot? What is it that you feel? One feels when we expand the forefoot away from the heel. And make sure, let's go the other direction too. So if that was forward, we also go backward. We pull the forefoot toward the heel, and then we expand the heel away from the forefoot. So right now I haven't said anything about the toes. You might find that you are using your toes or you're disengaging the toes. Just it's fine however the toes are being involved. You can notice that. And so we're just going to do that one side for the moment, because we're going to re-enter Dolphin, and I want you to have that experience of in Dolphin, just noticing what that little inchworm movement did to your foot, your ankle, your knee. So here's Dolphin once again, a little revisit. Curling the toe pads under, and pressing the knees off the ground. So you can just get a sense of how each foot contacts the ground, the feeling of each foot on the ground. Are the toes contributing to any pressure, propulsion, or maybe you've inactivated the toes from the ground by lifting them? Can you feel the heel moving toward the forefoot or away from the forefoot? How does that register up into the calf and behind the knee? Yeah, we'll gently set the knees down. We'll do the other side. Does that make a difference? Flatter. So you're just going to do a little forward, a little backward. This is just a basic kind of fun foot finding. You know, if you've had some sprained ankles or some arch situations, these can get kind of interesting pretty fast. So just to say it again, because I may have some friends taking this class a little bit later on today, I'm just drawing, shrinking up my heel toward my forefoot, and I'm planting it, and then expanding my forefoot away from the heel. And then we can go the other direction. It's always fun when there's a surprised remark or look. It's like, wait, those are muscles in there? I can control those? Wait, I can make an arch?
So backwards arm, the heel down first and then.
Yeah, so if I'm going backwards, I'm condensing the forefoot toward the heel. You'll see the arch grow higher. There's a deeper space. And then I leave the forefoot planted. And then I don't want to say stretch, but I expand the heel back away from the forefoot. Yeah, let's see it. So yeah, keep the forefoot planted and grow the heel back. Yep, that's the short part. Now leave those toes and forefoot down. Instead of lifting the weight of your leg up, just move the heel back. It's more of a foot action than a lifting and dropping of the leg. So you got that part, Now how do you expand the heel backward? There you go. There you go. Now that ankle's starting to talk a little. I can see there's little things around the ankle that are starting to talk and move in the front of the ankle. Mm-hmm. There you go. That's plenty. Just using it as a foot finder. And the feet may be different, right? If you sprained one ankle or broke a foot or something like that, like they can be very, very different. So now we'll take a third round of Dolphin. Why not? You only live once. That I know of. Maybe. Oh, press the knees off the ground. And this time, you might try to press with the forefoot and the toes and kind of elevate the heels up. That might actually stretch something kind of interesting in the foot. You might also feel for expanding the heel back. So that would be that backward motion that you were playing with, Joy. And within Dolphin itself, you could feel those two movements. You could feel for condensing the heel toward the forefoot and then expanding the heel away from the forefoot, all while the forefoot stays on the ground. Well, that'd be an interesting play. Let's try that. And release. I should get a few things moving in the feet. Okay. And then let's stand. We'll stand at the top of our mat. So it's kind of fun and weird. Like I do these little foot things, which I think, oh, that's small. And then I stand up and it's crickle, crackle, crickle. There's all these realignments. I hear my feet and knees and it's all sorts of adjustments. There my tibias are adjusting under the knee. Maybe your weight feels differently on the earth. Inhale, draw the arms up. Exhaling, fold. Inhale, we'll step the right foot back, lunge. And this will be with the knee up and the heel up. And may I recommend that you can use the other ball mounts. Usually we push through the big toe ball mount, but it's perfectly fine to press through those littler toe ball mounts. That will render that thigh and that leg turned a bit differently. There you go. And it might be interesting on some days, it could be today, to feel what happens as you press through all the parts of the forefoot. easy twisting warrior. We'll plant that right heel down, inhaling the right hand down. Exhaling, draw the left arm up. If your left big toe is on the ground, I have a little gift for you. Leaving the left big toe on the ground, spread your littlest toe away from the big toe. There you go. Ah, different foot. Yeah, that might change the whole way that you're feeling that foot and that leg and that. There you go. Yes, yes, yes. Inhale, we'll bring that left hand down to the ground. Exhaling, chaturanga. We'll step left foot back. And we'll lower. Inhale, cobra. Exhale, lower downward dog. All right, lunge. Inhale, step the right foot forward. And while usually I do cue us to push through the inner ball mounts, you can certainly play by pressing through the other ball mounts. I think you'll find, if you're inclined to do that, that they pull and they get us into very different parts of the foot and the calf. And what happens when I press through those outer ball mounts? And then what happens when I press through those innermost ball mounts? Easy twisting warrior. Inhale, we'll set the left hand down and plant the left heel down. Exhaling, we'll take the right arm up. And if your big toe is on the ground, if it is, you can spread your littlest toe, this is the right foot now, the littlest toe away from the big toe, and then just plant it down and just play with that. To me, it changes exactly the whole way I kind of settle through the ankle. Like the weight of the shin gets delivered through the talus much differently. Like there's a whole, yeah. Yeah, there's a whole variety of techniques we can do with the toes and the feet. The Ashtangis have some, this kind of toe spreading one. The Forrest people have it. We kind of lift and engage various muscles. Again, it's all here to serve awareness. Oh, I notice something, I start to pay attention to it, I feel it, I breathe it, and there grows there's an awareness I have now that lives in my foot, that lives in my body. Inhale, we'll bring the right hand down. Exhale, chaturanga. Inhaling upward dog or cobra. And exhaling downward dog. So we're going to move into Archer Warrior 2. Inhale, step your, I believe we started left foot forward first, I believe. Is that true? I think so. Well, we'll do left foot forward. And the Archer will be right elbow up, left elbow down, like so. So already I can get a sense of there's like so much more substantiality to my feet. They just already feel like there's a fuller presence. And I don't mind isolating out areas of the body if it points out to us presence, fullness. Like, these are really cool. I think they're important qualities if we're interested in moving from the wisdom of the body. You know, how do we show up in the world? Do we show up in a really full, feelingful, present, attentive way? Or do we show up in kind of flimsy, flaky, kind of there, but not really their ways? Now I'm giving you my preferences. There, yeah. Yeah. And so if those feet are any indication of fullness, how can the feet teach the pelvis? How can the feet teach my lungs, my heart, my shoulders that fullness, that presence, that richness? There you go. Mm-hmm. Right? Good. And then we'll release the strap as we move into interlock. And just so you know, I'm going to spoil it. We'll be in this interlock a couple of times today. So, so with the left arm, we'll go next to the left leg, the right hand behind the back. And I've just momentarily adjusted my left foot. I put my big toe down, my heel down, and I kind of spread my littlest toe away from my big toe, just so I can have a brand new sensation in this interlock. And release, set right knee down. Use as much cushion as you like. We're moving into a Nomad's pose or a fold. So straightening the left leg. And with most of my weight primarily on that right knee, I'm folding forward. Now I'm going to talk through another exercise. So if any of these little foot details aren't clear, it's all right. We've got decades to figure it out. There's no rush to evolve or grow or learn. There's no rush. So I'm going to, I don't want to say point, but I'm going to send my toe pads nearer to the earth. They may or may not get there. And I'm going to feel for growing my big toe away from my forefoot. So there is an arch creation. There is a point. But it's now from my big toe to my heel. So there is a little muscle working in the sole of the foot. And maybe I should show this just as you're in this move. If you get a lot more benefit to having that big toe reach and touch something, you can always set up a block or a wedge against the wall. It just creates a little different feedback loop. As I reach through the big toe, it involves more of that deep calf that I referred to earlier. And we'll release, inhaling, drawing that left foot back. Exhaling, chaturanga. Inhale, upward dog or cobra. I can already feel how my ankles contact the ground differently, and we'll press back into downward dog. All right, inhaling, stepping the right foot forward. We'll do that archer, we'll do that interlock, and that third pose. So warrior two stance. The archer is left elbow up, right elbow down. Okay. And there is one technique of foot where you can raise the toes up, but with any technique, if we do one technique to the exclusion of all possibilities, we sometimes develop like little blind spots. So you can try out, well, what if I leave my big toe on the ground? And what if I use that big toe with the ground, spreading that little toe out? Like that might be really good for someone who's sprained their ankle and is trying to relearn those muscle and those joint positions so their foot doesn't click and clack or, like it. And again, more than the technique is as you inhabit your foot, as you're feeling that inner space of the foot, there may be that lively, that full, that rich feeling. How do I learn that in my knee? How do I learn that fullness of being so in my body? How do I learn that in my hip? How do I learn that in my back? It's so rich, so fully here. Yeah. It's really beautiful, and presence is felt, right? And presence is felt by other bodies. So we know when we're really here. Other people know when we're really here. It's a really beautiful feeling. We'll release the hands, and here comes that interlock. The right armpit next to the right thigh. The left hand behind the back. Breathe plus feel. I find that those moments where I don't feel that fullness and that richness and that presence, I'm often not breathing. they're so strongly correlated that I can't not mention it. And when we release, we'll set the left knee down. Padding is nice. And for nomads, or folding forward, straightening or walking the right leg forward. And I'm trying to skirt around saying point the foot or push it down. So I'm feeling this big toe as a part of this whole arch, this continuum, big toe to heel. So I'm lengthening that big toe away from the heel, and as I send it toward the earth, I end up with a bit of a muscular activity in the foot, an arch. And that may open up the top of the ankle. And we'll draw this back and out of here. Inhale. Bring it back, walk it back. Exhaling, chaturanga. Inhale, cobra or upward dog. And again, if you're choosing upward dog, there's a lot of pressure down through the tops of the feet. So all that openness through the top of the ankle comes into play. Exhaling, downward dog. Pyramid. Inhale, step, left foot forward. And you can bring your hands to leg or blocks or ground. The feet are about 3 feet apart from one another. And when we set the knee down, the right knee down, we're moving into Pigeon. I just want to just give you the bird's eye view here. Is within the next round or so, we will be working deeply into a twining vine, so a deep fold with a little bit of a twist. So I just want to make sure all these hip areas are ready to rock. Now, often we'll get into a place like Pigeon, and it's fairly common for me to see the foot, especially the littler toe side of the foot, will just kind of collapse, right? So consider how do I play with that arch? How do I play with that so that the outer half of my left foot is just as lively and full as the inner half? There you go. And it might be an active foot, it might not be. I think I'm finding that I'm stationing this littler toe to the ground and it's like stretching my big toe away from my heel. That seems to create this structure to help my whole left foot feel full. And as you play around with how it is that we're inhabiting the foot, it might relay into the hip like, oh wow, that's a very different way of feeling this hip, this pigeon. And I think it's worth mentioning that a lot of these tools were being shared, used, and developed enough of a time ago where the weight of the general population was different, just the average weight. The kinds of shoes have changed radically. Like shoe technology has changed so much in the last 10, 20, 25, 30 years. How it is that we sit and walk and move, the kinds of surfaces that we encounter throughout a day. So a lot of that is influencing and modeling our foot, whether to atrophy because there's not enough variability or to grow in particular ways. So sometimes our techniques have to just adapt. Right, inhale, let's tuck this left heel under, exhaling, downward dog. So we'll work pyramid and pigeon on the other side. Inhale, step right foot forward. And for now, we're folding. I encourage you to find and use the inner leg lines. Now, how you get to and activate those leg lines can be partially how the foot interfaces with the ground. For me, it has a very ankle-specific it's kind of an ankle specificity for me. Yeah, so just like that roll during our abdominals, we kind of tweezed the roll. I find that I get that tweezing if I get my toe, my foot working, spreading, and I can actually grab the ground with my big toe pad and turn the earth. And I can turn the earth until I feel that in my inner groin. It has to go through the knee. Can't just stop at the knee. And pigeon. So a bend, Setting the left knee down. And walking the right leg across. And I find I get a little bit better foot and knee position these days if I stretch my big toe pad away from my heel. It actually creates an arch. So I'm saying that to create some difference from just pulling the toes back. There you go. And inhale, bring the hands under the shoulders, exhaling, downward dog. All right, so I promised us some twining vine. I think we started with the left leg. Inhale, step the left foot forward for interlock, warrior interlock. Okay. So you can station here as long as you require. The half twining vine today is moving the right foot next to the left foot, bringing those feet quite close together, and then using the arch to groin connection to start to tweeze and structure and engage the inner legs. And then tuning into how the feet are on the ground. So something I'm noticing is one of those heels may started to have rocked up and lost contact with the ground. So maybe I can inchworm my heel back into the earth. Or maybe it's the forefoot. But maybe I start to inchworm my foot parts into the earth. Does that make a difference? Deep breath. Because part of this is just finding a workable edge and bringing breath into that scenario. There you go. That's it. That's it. Again, there is no rush to grow. There's no rush to change. We can hang out on an edge for as long as we need to. And bend knees. Let go of hands. Inhale, unwind, kind of slither out of there. And then exhale into a fold. Just chest folding centrally between the legs. Let's step back. Inhale, we'll step the feet back. Chaturanga, exhaling to lower. Inhale, upward dog or cobra. Exhaling, downward dog. Ready for one more side? Inhale the right foot forward. Move into interlock. And you can stage here as long as you require. And then when you're ready for that half twining vine, we'll walk the left foot next to the right. Now bring those feet quite close together. And you can take a moment to kind of set the big toe down, to set the heel down, to spread the little toe away from the big toe. Take as much setup time as you need. And then when the feet feel well interfacing, and let that foot activity start to sing through the groin. So as the inner leg becomes active with fullness, the fullness kind of draws us into the pose. There you go. And I'll often keep my knees similarly bent. There you go. Just bringing breath into the circumstance. There it is. Yes, all the way into that brain. All the way into that sweet, sweet brain. There it is. That's the one that gets to the head. Yeah, that's the whole body breath. Yeah. Now when you need to exit, bend the knees so we lessen the tension, release the hands. And as you slink your right arm out from under, we'll move into a fold once again. It's a simple forward fold. And then let's have a seat. I'm going to select for shoelace. And I'm going right over left to start. We'll do both sides. Inhale, draw the arms out to side for eagle. Exhale, we'll hook the left over the right. So option one is remain right here, just gliding the shoulders down. And option two is folding forward. Because I don't have my hands to just reach out and support me, that fold has to come from a really deep, strong place. My feet, my hips, it's a really deep. I often have to kind of press very strongly with my hips to control that descent. And inhaling, we'll come back up. And we'll switch sides. So if I do that fold passively, like I just try to, then I need my hands to get me out of there. But if I move in with control, you can probably feel that in the hips, like there's something working that lets me fold, and then can hold me, let me, like that's a working way of going in. You'll be able to work in and work out. So again, option one is no fold, just remain vertical, eagle, and shoelace. Option two is begin to fold, just know you don't have the hands to just plop on the ground, so the control has to come elsewhere. It's probably the hip area. And inhaling, we can press our way up. And just know you might have to use your hands to push your way up. All right, let's unwind and do a little Shavasana, please. So once lying, if you can afford to have the soles of your feet exposed to just the ambient, the air, the environment, then just continue a little meditation within the foot. So as you enter in and inhabit the space of the foot, can you detect, is there an inflow or an outflow? Or no flow through the sole of the foot? Is the environment offering the foot impressions, or is the foot offering the environment expressions? And can you feel for the big toe, just releasing from the big toe joint? And when you're ready, bend knees. Turn to one side. You'll feel a and use hands to press up. All right. A pleasure. Namaste. You're so welcome.